My friends, it's video 101. Welcome to the show. I make a video every day. My name is Brendan Mitchell. I'm losing 80 pounds, though I haven't been making videos about that for a little while because I've been all fucked up. I'm fine. I haven't really been, like, fucked up. Nothing bad happened. Just life, things happening at once. Actually, most things that have been happening have been good. It's just been a little too tired to do certain things. And my wife's away, and not forever. Um, and all I want to do is sit on the couch and drink scotch and watch old movies. I want to sit on the couch and write by hand, which is how I often write. Isn't that annoying? People say that. They say, I used to make so much fun of people that still use typewriters. And if you use a typewriter as a writer, you deserve to be ridiculed at length. It's entirely untenable to handle so many moving pieces with a typewriter. It's an unruly system. But writing is not unlike painting or drawing in that the tools required are very much so the process itself. Writing is like the literal creation of symbols that form together to create thoughts or images or sounds. And the process of writing is very much so the physical process of making those symbols. And somewhere in that stew, creation is happening, and you can't pinpoint where it's happening. So the utensils you use to write are very important, and they do dictate the kind of thing that comes out. If I write by hand versus if you give me an idea, if we could time travel, if you gave me an idea to write by hand and then an idea to write the same idea and asked me to write it with a computer, same idea and asked me to write it with a typewriter, all of those pieces would come out differently. That's something to think about. To some extent, they would come out differently, literally due to how easy it is to write on a computer. I can type way faster than I speak, believe it or not. My typing speed is outrageous. And I can type endlessly while writing because when I'm typing in a computer, there's so much less editing going into my thoughts because I'm so used to typing. When I use a typewriter, there is a manual, physical, powerful sensation in the writing, and everything is very rigid and easy to fuck up. It's difficult to go backwards. You can't. And it's also cumbersome. You have to get into a very distinctive physical position. It also feels good to write in a typewriter. Oh, it feels good. Each push of that button is a little jolt. It feels nice. And you get keyboards that replicate it. I have one. But it doesn't really, it's nothing compared to a nice typewriter. I think I have gotten to a place where a typewriter is probably ideal, but not like an old school, like, deep, deep, deep. There are, like, middle ground Italian typewriters made in, like, the 60s and 70s that I don't own, but I would love to. And then you could also apply the modern thing to it, where it's like the reason I like a typewriter is because it doesn't fucking ding with an email, which is also true. Your brain makes you live by associations, especially on a hormonal level. When I sit down on my computer, it doesn't really know if I'm going to write or if I'm going to shut my brain completely off and play a video game. It has no idea. So the use of a throne and like how you make use of a workspace and using that workspace for recreation it's a mistake. You shouldn't do those things in the same place. Unfortunately, lately I use this space more for recreation than writing. Actually, I don't use it for recreation either. The past month I haven't even played any games. I just watch movies and sit on the couch, as my wife is gone. But writing by hand, on the other hand, has incredible physical limitations. It hurts after a while. After a few thousand words, your hand physically hurts. It's also significantly more. There is something intensely interpersonal about writing by hand. It is. I don't go in much for poetry, but I have written poetry, and I won poetry contests when I was a kid, in high school. Not really a kid, but I can only write poetry by hand. I couldn't even imagine how to do it with a keyboard because poetry is not a tool. Is not the tools required to make poetry are important. I genuinely cannot imagine typing a poem. So what does that say about writing a novel by hand? Would it be a more poetic novel? Would the writing be more romantic? Not in the sense of like romance, but would it be more floral? Would it be more cautious? All these things interact with one another when you are writing and how you write. Um, I've never written by hand because I also have terrible handwriting. But the past year and a half, I actually started writing quite a lot by hand, um, and it is very enjoyable. There is like a free nature of it. Writing by hand, you can also you can doodle, you could go in corners, you could fuck with words in any way, um, without you're not in the rigid form of a square. Um, but all of these things change the substance of what you're creating pretty intensely, and that is actually also kind of concerning. So you generally want to like stick to one thing. Ultimately, you have to edit on a computer anyway. You're not going to edit by hand. And when you're dealing with something that's novelistic, something that's extremely long, or something that requires a great deal of research, you need a computer program. That's just and obviously they didn't use it. You know, Virgil didn't use a computer program, to write the Aeneid. Don't fucking question me on the pronunciation of that, obviously. But if you have access to that technology, it's pretty good. Writing programs are very good. Why am I talking about this? I don't know. I don't know how I got here. I was saying I wanted to sit on the couch and drink a glass of scotch and pretend to write while watching a movie. But I'm not going to do that because drinking makes me tired and lazier than I already am. Um, yeah, that's how I feel. I'm kind of in between things. I've said this in every video, so I'm going to stop now. Um, I am feeling very good, though. The past week has been things are finally starting to normalize. I'm finally settled in with a great deal of the things that have been going on in my life, and they're finally starting to all work together, all click in the right way. I'm less in that, that mode when you start something very new or a dramatic change happens. And for kind of like a week or 2 weeks, you're just kind of like, that's the thing that you do. Even when you're not doing it, you're still kind of doing that thing in a passive way. That's where I've been for a while. And that's starting to kind of, teeter out in its own way. Now I have writing on my mind. Now I can't stop thinking about the appropriate way to articulate the difference between writing with a computer and a typewriter and writing by hand. I recognize this is not what I usually talk about, but these are the types of things I care about. So it's either I talk about this or I come on here every day and I go, I don't know what to say, fat people, you're all, you're gay. Those are the other things that I say. Um, it's your unconscious mind is having a dream that you are then interpreting without inference. You are filtering a series of like dreams through the concept of a narrative. But you're generally not doing that actively while you write. It's happening on a kind of unconscious level. And the amount of tactile things between you and that thing being on the paper alters the way your consciousness is interacting with those creation of the words themselves. So all of that changes the way something will come out. I would imagine if you wrote a story in a cold room versus a warm room, the words would be different. Things like that freak me out to contemplate. And it's a part of the quality of writing and knowing. And it's also one of the things that it contributes to the very elusive style, which in effect is the capacity for an individual to express themselves in a distinct way that is natural. You can't create style, unfortunately. It grows with you over time and exists, or you don't have it. Those are the two options. I've never sat down and thought, I want to write like this, but like that. That's never occurred to me in a million years, because it's just, I write. I don't really. The thing, I always trust the thing to form itself. I'm not smart enough to think about things like that. Those are the type of things on my mind. I guess I should write, huh? Writing is what's on my mind today. Well, look at that. When I'm skinny, if I'm skinny, when I get skinny, I'll always look like this. Ooh, fucking. Ooh. What's up, baby? Imagine waking up to that. That's your husband every day, making that face, putting the moves on you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can't win them all, but You want a high, you want like an 80% average. Fuck am I saying? I'm gonna go. I love you all. We're getting back to it. I miss the gym. I'm gonna start lifting again. Um, it, it, it's not like we're starting from zero. We're starting from like, I don't know, 80%. You know, I'm probably gonna be able to throw. I'll probably be able to throw 2 plates on my deadlift and a plate on my bench the moment I get into the gym for the first time. The only exercise I'll have to pare down by like 40% will be squats, just because they are the ones that frighten me the most, because it's where I've injured myself the most. I think I've injured myself the most squatting due to my predisposition to squat. I can squat more than I should because I'm used to doing it, like physically, and because of the shape of my body, if that makes sense. It's almost like hurting yourself because you're too flexible. That's kind of how I feel about squats. Like there are so many ways my body will make up for me not being able to really do the weight naturally, that I always end up hurting myself. And that's because the lift I think about the most, the one I like the most, the one I used to do the most when I was younger, in my early 20s. Anyway, the time is coming. I feel quite good. And I'm gonna go, into the other room and sit and watch movies from a time period where people were capable of creating good things. And that's it. I will see you tomorrow.